Hi, everyone. Today, me and Helevorn are going to be talking about the results that she had after taking the 16 personalities quiz for two of her characters, Ulf and Ivar, who are the protagonists of her upcoming contemporary novel, Equilibrium Point. In many ways, Equilibrium Point is a modern retelling or alternative timeline version of Lucky Wolf. So, Ivar is the modern version of Yngvar, and Ulf is the modern version of Eyolf. So we're going to be contrasting and comparing these two characters with each other as well as with their medieval selves.
Right. It was really fun taking this personality test. And I have to say, I was inspired by you because you started doing it for your characters. And I found it fascinating. And it's so fun to solve the test from the perspective of your character. So it's immersion, total immersion for me as the author.
Absolutely. So let's start with Ulf. What is Ulf's personality?
So Ulf is an entrepreneur, ESTPA. And Ivar was an architect, INTJA. And I have to say that both of these really fit like a glove.
They do. And I love the Photoshop you did with putting their faces onto the little avatar from the site.
Thanks. I thought it would be really funny, especially with Ivar, who is such a serious person. To see his face pasted on a cartoony character, it's really fun.
Yeah, I love the poses too. I think Ulf's pose is very, very accurate, but he does have that little thing that says sport, and he's not sporty.
That's true, but then he's dressed in yellow. I found it really fun that the entrepreneur is dressed in yellow because in Lucky Wolf, his medieval version Eyolf wears yellow, and it's his trademark.
Right. So Ulf
To
is
start by presenting.
yes, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so he's an entrepreneur and he is mostly extroverted. He's more observant than intuitive, which is interesting, and more thinking than feeling, which is again interesting because quite an impulsive person and he can get sometimes sentimental, but his reason matters more. In terms of tactics, he is prospecting rather than judging, and of course, he's very assertive.
Right. So what are his strengths and weaknesses?
Okay, so let's see. I found this quote really interesting. It says, "Insight of the day: entrepreneurs are the most likely personality type to be one of the cool kids at school." And then we see him in Equilibrium Point when he's a teenager, and he really is one of the cool kids and the party animal that people like, or even those who don't like him, they are still intrigued by him.
That's true, like Ivar, for example.
That's true, right. Okay, so they say strengths and weaknesses. Entrepreneur strengths: bold, um, and definitely he is full of life and energy. And it says there is no greater joy for entrepreneurs than pushing boundaries and discovering and using new things and ideas. Okay, so he is also rational and practical. He loves knowledge and philosophy, but not for his own sake. So he likes finding ideas that are actionable, and that's very true. And I like that it also says that he loves knowledge and philosophy because this is one thing that he and Ivar bond over. Even though Ivar is more into theoretical things, I guess, than Ulf, but this is something they both have in common. Also, he's original, he's perceptive, he is direct, And he's very sociable, and we see that in Ulf very much from the way that he dresses, where he's very original and he likes getting attention, to the fact that he's very sociable. And that's definitely in his medieval version as well. As we know, he throws these lavish parties and rituals.
Exactly. He loves being at the center of attention.
Yes, always, always. The weakness is he can be insensitive, it says. And I think he's more considerate in his contemporary version, because he had less trauma than the medieval one. But in the medieval one, we see him often being very insensitive. But even as his contemporary version, Ulf, he can be bluntly honest. He can be very impatient and risk prone, and we see him in Equilibrium Point doing a lot of risky things from when he has these antisocial tendencies as a teenager, and he puts himself into dangerous situations. And then we see that into his adulthood when he does some well shady things that risk his career.
Absolutely. Insensitive is definitely one of his weaknesses, as we saw in Lucky Wolf. As you said, in his medieval version, he is definitely more to the point, and sometimes he doesn't really think about what he says before he says it.
Exactly, and he isn't very considerate about other people's feelings except when it suits him.
Hmm.
Right. So, and also he is defiant. This is another weakness. And it says repetition, hardline rules, sitting quietly while they are lectured at. This isn't how entrepreneurs live their lives. They are action oriented and hands on. And this is something that he even says in the novel. That's true. He is quite defiant when it comes to rules, and like I said, this jeopardizes his career and in Lucky Wolf, even his life, because
Hmm.
he rebels against the king. So, what's more defiant than this?
Exactly. How about his romantic relationships?
Ah, this is nice. It says, sexually, entrepreneurs have no real reservations. It's fun, it's physically enjoyable, new ideas are always welcome, and entrepreneur personality, strong perception keeps them well tuned to their partner's needs. However, entrepreneur separation of the physical act from the more emotional and spiritual connections can be a serious source of tension if everybody isn't on the same page. Some types need sex to be a genuine expression of love. Entrepreneurs just aren't one of them. And this is very true because he can easily compartmentalize between love and just casual sex. So this can be a problem. He is upfront about it, but this can cause some awkward situations if, things change for one of the partners during the relationship. Okay, so that's one thing. And then it says when it comes to romantic relationships, um, people with the entrepreneur personality type can hardly be said to be pining away for their wedding day. So he's really not the romantic type of person. Life is fun and full of surprises, and they'll enjoy it in the here and now. So they may not spend a lot of time planning for someday, but their enthusiasm and unpredictability make them thrilling dating partners. Entrepreneurs' relationships are far from boring. Their improvisational style creates a seemingly never ending list of activities and hobbies to be involved in. And entrepreneurs fully encourage their partners to partake. It's interesting because in Equilibrium Point, it's rather Ivar who comes up with um, out of the ordinary ideas for activities that they can take part in. But this is also because Ulf is more open to experiences, and when he comes with an idea, Ivar is very likely to say no, while Ulf is basically up for anything that Ivar proposes. So maybe this is also why this is happening. And this is interesting. It says entrepreneurs love new ideas and the occasional philosophical discussion, which is a big point in my novel. So it's interesting that it comes up so often. But they need to be topics that can be explored through action together and not just idle talk. And the example that they chose with epidemic obesity and healthy living is on point because Ulf is a doctor. So, of course, he's going to talk about things like that in the novel. So, I really love how well this fits. Okay, another slide for romantic relationships. It says that easily bored people with the entrepreneur personality type seek constant excitement, sometimes even intentionally exposing themselves to risk if they feel stuck. So I guess he is more likely to jump from one partner to another. He can be loyal if he wants to, but then he can easily move on. It says being as charming and as popular as they are, it can sometimes be a little too easy to move on, or not necessarily to move on, but to have an open relationship and to, not be exclusive with his partner, which is something that happens all through his life.
Mhm.
So, this is we will see this challenged in equilibrium, where he and Ivar are not always compatible in a lot of ways. So it will be a challenge for Ulf to be, I should say, loyal.
Right, and that's the opposite for Ivar, who is very loyal.
Yeah, exactly, because he doesn't seek as much excitement as Ulf does.
Mhm.
Right. So, let's see what it says about career. When it comes to career options, actions is the word of the day. So, definitely, he would not be good as a researcher or a librarian or things like that. He needs to be on his feet and to make quick decisions in the heat of the moment. So, he is a doctor, and he has great responsibilities as a doctor, and he needs to make decisions quickly that will have a great impact on people's health and lives. So I guess in this sense it fits. He never gets bored. um, he does choose a stable job, so I guess he doesn't go for a very exciting, I mean, I guess it's exciting, but it's also a stable job. So right. um he doesn't do very well with rules, as we're going to see in Equilibrium Point. It's kind of a spoiler, so I won't get into a lot of detail, but you know what I mean when he goes outside of the beaten path to prove his point and to do what he thinks is right, even if the law says otherwise. So yes, definitely he will step outside of the path that he's supposed to follow. Right. So, okay, it says that he could drive the ambulance. So, yeah, I get. Oh, paramedics. Right. It says that it lists paramedics as a type of the job that entrepreneurs have. So, yeah, I guess it fits the career as well.
Mhm.
Okay, now let's see what it says about the friendships. He is a very friendly and sociable person, but he doesn't have a lot of very close friends. So it says here that they don't worry much about what other thinks about them. This attracts friends who share their attitude and zest for life. And that's definitely true because most of his friends, unlike Ivar, do share this zest for life, and they love going to parties and doing all kinds of activities together. But with Ivar, it's rather the philosophical discussions and the intellectual exercise that bond them, as it says here. So, but it says that they are unlikely to develop friendships based solely on one-to-one discussions about European economic challenges and the role of religion in politics. So yeah, I guess this is why he isn't just friends with Ivar, because he could not have a friendship based on this one. But if it's, a multi-layered relationship, I guess it works.
Well, that's Ivar, right? Ivar would have a friendship based on that.
Yeah, only on that. That would be perfect for him.
And how about Ulf as a parent?
Yeah, that's a good question because he does have a child, a little girl in Equilibrium. So it says that he would be the perfect parent. Fun loving and playful, flexible and understanding. He genuinely loves spending time with his child and knows how to make sure that everyone is having a good time because of his natural curiosity and spontaneity. So, yeah, I guess his daughter thinks he is quite a fun person to be around.
Mhm.
So they can create healthy, genuine bonds with their children, gaining a deeper knowledge of their children's unique needs and dreams. So this will create an open relationship between him and his daughter. Of course, his daughter is very young. He's about 4 years old throughout the novel, so this isn't immediately noticeable because at this age, children are, of course, very close to their parents. But I think that in her later years, she will have an open relationship with Ulf based on honesty and understanding. Because
Mhm.
I think Ulf is a type of parent who can create that.
Mhm. I see that too.
Right. So this was everything about Ulf. Now we can go on to Ivar, and let's see how he contrasts with Ulf. And I love that in describing the architect personality type, they start with a quote which I think would really fit in Equilibrium Point by Blaise Pascal. It says, "Thought constitutes the greatness of man. Man is a reed, the feeblest thing in nature, but he's a thinking reed." I think this is something that Ivar would say.
It does sound like something he would, especially when it's narrated in his voice in Equilibrium Point.
Yeah, I know. I know that this fits so well. I was so excited to see how well Ivar fits as well. It says rational and quick-witted architects pride themselves on their ability to think for themselves, not to mention their uncanny knack for seeing right through phoniness and hypocrisy. But because their minds are never at rest, architects may struggle to find people who can keep up with their non-stop analysis of everything around them. Definitely, Ivar is a very analytical person, and because of this, he can be quite judgmental because nothing is satisfying enough for him, and this sometimes reflects in a negative way upon his relationships with other people, romantic and not only. So he can come off as arrogant because he really does take pride in his ability to think for himself. So he
Mhm.
would not be friends or have a romantic relationship with someone that he doesn't consider to be bold and original like himself. So
Mhm.
this is one thing that attracts him to Ulf. It says a pioneering spirit. Architects question everything, and that's definitely true. He doesn't trust the status quo, doesn't rely on conventional wisdom or other people's expertise to guide their lives, because he is ever skeptical and he prefers to make his own discoveries. And I think this is what he and Ulf, sorry, really connect, because they both have this in common in spite of the apparent discrepancies between the two.
Hmm.
Um, so he wants to be successful, not just inventive, and this is why he places a great emphasis on his career. From the outside, people would say that he is quite an accomplished person. Of course, being so critical, he doesn't really find much satisfaction in his job. But yeah, he has a good job. He's an executive at his uncle's company. Independent to the core, they want to shake off other people's expectations and pursue their own ideas. Yes, definitely. Um, okay, and he has a thirst for knowledge. He genuinely wants to expand the limits of his knowledge, and this is why I think he wants to challenge himself, and he finds in Ulf a challenge. He's very cynical. He assumes that most people are lazy, unimaginative, and simply doomed to mediocrity. This is so on point. I think he would say it in these exact words, or even more judgmental words, even harsher ones. In school, they may have been called bookworms or nerds. I think it can be true, but then he was the kind of person who could get into um, I would say debates, or not really debates, because he doesn't like talking very much, but he could challenge teachers and other students if he thinks that they are wrong. And he generally thinks that he is right and everybody else is wrong. um, he recognizes his own ability to master any topic that interests him. And yes, he is very confident about his intellectual abilities. Right. He has little patience for frivolity, distractions, and idle gossip. But he is far from dull or humorless. Um, some people think he is dull and humorless, but those who know him better can appreciate his fine wit. And Ulf is one of the ones who notice the subtleties.
Hmm.
One of the few ones, I think. Okay. He isn't known for being warm and fuzzy, definitely. Nobody would describe him as such, not even Ulf. Um, okay, right. This may explain why so many fictional villains are modeled on this personality
Oh my
type.
gosh.
He's not really a villain, but I think he can be a morally gray character, both as Ivar and as Ingvar in medieval times. Okay, I'll browse quickly through strengths. He's rational, informed, independent, determined, curious, and original. Yes, check all of them. Weaknesses: arrogant, dismissive of emotions, overly critical, combative. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. Socially clueless. I guess he can be socially clueless. I'm not sure about this one. Maybe when it comes to intimate relationships, but otherwise it's not really apparent. He
Hmm.
would rather just seem annoyed rather than socially clueless.
Yes, I agree. That's a good way to put it. I don't think he's socially clueless because that would indicate a kind of awkwardness, but he's not awkward.
Exactly, exactly. It's only if somebody tries to get really intimate with him, that's when he could come off as a bit awkward and a bit shy. But you'd have to get really close to him to notice that.
Mhm, exactly. So how
Okay.
about romantic relationships?
Another nice quote, which I think would summarize quite well the relationship between him and Ulf. It says, "Of all forms of caution, caution in love is perhaps the most fatal to true happiness," says Bertrand Russell. And yeah, I think Ulf would say that about Ivar. He can do some things that can be fatal to happiness. He approaches romance strategically with clear cut goals and a plan for achieving them. No wonder, since he is good as a project manager and, you know, all the other things that he does is an executive officer in the company. So I think this is how he approaches romance as well. Um, Finding a compatible partner can be a particular challenge, definitely, because he's rarely satisfied with things as they are. So he applies a relentlessly critical eye to every potential partner. Yes, and this is why he doesn't engage in any relationships until he reconnects with Ulf.
Hmm.
The woes of dating.
He doesn't.
Archetypes.
He doesn't date.
Exactly, this is why he doesn't even bother. And it's interesting how it is put here. It says archetypes value depth, intelligence, and unmitigated honesty, and a relationship that isn't founded on these values simply isn't worth pursuing. So it says that they can um, as they mature and gain experience, exactly the way it happens in my novel, many architects eventually come to understand the purpose of romantic rituals, but until that point they may decide dating is too irrational or beneath them. That's again, that summarizes a part of the plot in my novel. I feel exposed. This is too good.
It's so on point.
I know, I know. And here basically it says that it's difficult for him to express his emotion, and sometimes that makes him feel inadequate because he realizes that he is supposed to be more emotional or to talk about his emotions more. So he fails, and then he feels inadequate. So as much as he is confident in himself, he knows that this is his weak point, but he will have to get out of his comfort zone if he wants to really have a healthy relationship.
Hmm.
Right. Career. It's no surprise that jobs in engineering, research, science, and technology are common choices for architects or business analysts. Yes, of course. This is well put, because it says that um, as their careers progress, they may be drawn to positions that allow them to influence a company's or organization's overall strategies. So he can have an influential role as project manager. Yeah, this is very well said. This is what he does.
Hmm.
All right. And as a manager, he is um, he values true merit and doesn't like people who just want to easily get off with things without working too much. And so he can be quite he can overanalyze and be overly critical with his employees, but at the same time, he is just, and nobody can say otherwise. Right. And about friendships, architects care about depth and quality, and he doesn't have many acquaintances that he meets like Ulf does, but he'd rather have just a few good friends. And I don't think this, what I'm going to say, applies very much to equilibrium if we think about his friend Henrik. It says, in friendship, architects are looking for an intellectual match as much as anything else. He craves mental stimulation and have the most fun among friends who can challenge their ideas. And I think this would apply in his medieval version to his friendship with Aiden. So that's the
Hmm.
ideal kind of friendship that an architect can have, and he thankfully finds it in my novel Sons of Disobedience.
Exactly. I think, this is something that he always wanted, but he didn't have the words for it until he experienced it.
Exactly, exactly, because he is friends with Henrik, who corresponds to the medieval Hakon. So they don't have anything else than some shared interests for sports. Because Ivar is very dissatisfied with everything and bored and resigned to everything being so substandard. He sometimes seeks thrills by doing extreme sports, and Hendrik is the adventurous type, so this is what they do together, but they don't talk much. They don't have a very strong connection or communication.
Hmm. The Waster says in YouTube, greetings. Thank you for watching. I saw that there were 4 people watching in total, and now it has dropped to 2. But, thank you so much for joining in and, for watching this awesome podcast with Helevorn talking about her characters.
Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you're enjoying this. This has been really fun for me to discuss these things, and I'm excited to see how on point all of these results were. And I think that this points to the fact that the characters are consistent. Because you know that they all fall so well together, all of these pieces of information, so it means that they feel like real characters. So I think this is an accomplishment.
Definitely. You've done a great job fleshing them out, and this is going to help even more. This is going to give you the vocabulary to think more about them.
Exactly, and maybe it even, I think it even points out some aspects that I haven't really considered before.
Hmm. Did you have anything about him as a parent, or not really, because he's not a parent?
Um, no, I don't think I saved anything. But about parents, it says that Ivar could um, teach his child how to think and not what to think. And I think that was really interesting because he does sort of have a child. I mean, if he remains in a relationship with Ulf, he would have to be involved at least partly in the upbringing of Ulf's daughter. So he would do a great job in teaching her how to think for herself,
Hmm.
even though he's otherwise very bad with kids. But thankfully, she has Ulf. So she doesn't have to rely on Eva. She can come to Eva with homework always. That's not going to be a problem. But other than that, I'm not sure Eva is a good father. He's very impatient with kids, and um, he would even avoid spending time with her, which is of course not nice, and this is how he can be very insensitive. But when he
Hmm.
does have to spend time with her, I think he would like spending time with her when she grows up. But
Hmm.
now
That's
when she
true.
is, under 10, he would find small children so annoying.
So the Waster says, it's better to talk about your characters. Speak it into existence. It helps with memory too. So much of my work is in misplaced notebooks.
That's fantastic, and thank you so much for sharing your own insight as an author. This is amazing. That's true. That's true. I think you have to be very organized in this job, and I also struggle with this. I'm not an organized person in real life. With writing, I try to be organized because it's my greatest passion, and I put more effort than I put into my job. So this is the most organized I can be, but I know that you can easily lose yourself in all the information.
Hmm. I think speaking is one of the first steps, right? Once you have these recordings, you're more motivated to start writing about them.
That's true, and having someone to brainstorm with, like I am so lucky to have with you, with the podcast, this is really helping you structure your own thoughts.
Exactly. So, we have concluded both Ivar and Ulf's personality quiz results. And would you say you learned anything new about these characters?
I think I did. I never thought much about Ulf as a parent. for example. So this is one thing that I learned. And also, there is a part, that part with Ivar, how he is as a manager in a career environment. And that's also very valuable because his job is very different from my own. So I have a hard time imagining him at work. So I think that is going to be really helpful because I'll be trying to build on that.
Definitely. I think one of the challenges of writing contemporary fiction is writing about a career that you don't really know about, right?
I know, because in the Middle Ages, there's no one say, "Oh, look, I'm a Norse here, Norse law speaker, and what you wrote is not accurate." Or, I'm a medieval healer. Nobody really knows. So as long as you are well informed, I guess there is only so much you can do. But if it's contemporary, then people can easily do what you wrote.
Right. And the last question of this podcast is, how different are Ulf and Ivar from their medieval versions, Eyolf and Yngvar?
Well, first of all, I think that they are more violent in their medieval versions, definitely, and they have suffered much more trauma because they have had. I mean, Ivar has had quite a sheltered life. He has had to deal with some mental illness in his family, but other than that, he has a very comfortable life. Whereas in medieval times, there's war and a lot of death, and he also kills people because he's a warrior, so that has a great impact on his behavior and on the way he thinks. So there's definitely much more violence, and in Ulf as well, because he has suffered a lot of trauma.
hmm
Whereas here, yeah, he was abandoned by his mother, but he was in the care of Norwegian social services, and placed or adopted by a doctor. So it wasn't that bad. I mean, Norway has a great system of social services. So it really doesn't compare to what he had to go through in the medieval period, in the 10th
hmm
century, being left to die in the woods by his mother, and having to do a lot of shady things and deal with a lot of cruel people. So yeah, there's more trauma in their lives, which leads them to being more prone to hurt other people.
True. And also some of their traits are more extreme.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Exactly. But I would agree. I think generally speaking, they are quite similar. The core of their characters is the same, but it's just the externalities that have been changed.
That's true, and this is really so fun to explore. This is one of the reasons why I started writing Equilibrium Point in the first place, because in the medieval setting, there's, I think, only so much that you can explore with these characters, but then you can put them in other situations, new situations that reveal new things about them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Helevorn.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening.
Yep, thank you so much for listening, guys. This was an amazing podcast, and we will be doing more like this with other characters of yours, like Aiden and Merwin.
Yes, definitely. I cannot wait. Thank you.